Hi, I am Michael Bean, and this is your lesson for myfreeactingclass.com for Wednesday, November the 4th. You can find everything that we're doing at myfreeactingclass.com, including videos from all of the past lessons and information about me and links to the guests. Tomorrow, I have confirmed actress Carly Warkington. Next week, we have actor, theater actor, and film TV actor Rogi Yu. And then the Thursday after that, because Thursdays are in the new schedule, are the day for guests. We have Annalise Tilling and Erin Lally, a pair of casting directors who have been casting a bunch of stuff lately. And they just confirmed with me today. I know I talked them up yesterday a little bit. 1 second. Hi. And so let's start by looking at the script. Today we are going to do a detailed breakdown of the script, and we've got a couple of volunteers who are going to read that for us. Let's start by looking at the script together. This is from a TV movie called, what is this called again? Salem Falls. And the characters, it's a witchy movie. We're going to start with Salem Falls this week, and then we can look at Motherland next week. So hopefully everybody can see this. Character is Jillian. Kira, let's have you read Jillian, and we'll have Eve read Chelsea, and Melissa read Megan. Okay, I will read all the stage direction, and we'll look at this. Now, one of the things that you'll notice here, bottom right corner, 7 pages. This is totally normal. Jillian is one of the lead characters for the movie. One of the crazy things about learning to be a film and TV actor, is that most of the time you will audition for a couple of lines, and then sometimes you will audition for a couple of pages, and then very unpredictably there will be like, here's 7 pages and we expect this for tomorrow, or here's 11 pages and we expect this for tomorrow. So often I think it's useful to read the crossed out parts. So if we were going to read this, the diner, Addie might teach us more about Maggie and Addie. We don't know who they are yet, but let's pick it up here from interior Jillian's bedroom day. You always see int or X'd at the beginning of a scene. Jillian, Megan, and Chelsea are getting ready for the day after their sleepover, putting on makeup, fixing hair, etc. Again, one moment. Interior Jillian's bedroom day. Jillian, Megan, and Chelsea are getting ready for the day after their sleepover, putting on makeup, fixing hair, etc.
So how long does love spell take to work? If it works.
Jillian reaches to give Chelsea a pinch. Pinch.
Take that back. You can't say if. You have to believe it'll work or it won't work.
Melissa, this is you.
Yeah, magic can help you if you don't have faith in it.
You have to know that you are one with nature, that it's part of you so you can command it. It's a beautiful thing if you think about it. Don't even bother if you're not going to think about it and really get it.
Okay, sorry. So how long will it take before you meet your true love?
We did a spell to get Mrs. Elliot to stop making our lives miserable in chemistry. And 10 days later, she quit. Just like that.
Whoa, just 10 days?
Jillian watches her face in the mirror as she fixes her hair.
I don't think it'll take 10 days for this spell.
How do you know?
Because I can't wait that long.
Okay, so something like this, stage direction, Jillian watches her face, etc., gives us information about Jillian, right? So that we know that Jillian is looking to meet her true love. We know that Jillian is how she looks is important enough to her that even in the middle of teaching her friends about this or getting ready to cast this love spell, she's checking herself out in the mirror. we're going to do the story questions, thinking about Jillian's character, because these are the actual audition sides for the character of Jillian. Now, of course, if we had more time, we would read through all of the scenes and you would get a sort of better sense of Jillian, but I will summarize for you that, in the next scene, the new guy comes to town and Jillian's like, oh, he's the one. And then the next scene, I think her and her friends are all naked in the woods performing a witchy love spell, and they hear somebody coming through the woods and it's the guy sort of stumbling through the woods. So whether this is the kind of movie, where the intention is that that's coincidence, or the intention, is that they're actually sort of witches or using witchy powers, I don't really know. And I don't think it actually matters for the purpose of the script, because it's clear that Jillian believes that it works. And so in the scene, Jillian is very much convincing her friends. Now, one of the reasons that I wanted to choose this particular script, partly because anything you bring to this first scene, you're going to have to add to it. Like the second scene for Jillian has got this oh, he's the guy, oh, and so it's got some emotional arc written into it. The scene after that, tons of emotional arc, because her and her friends are in the woods and they're all nervous and they're like, no, we gotta go. And she's like, no, gotta finish the spell. Right? So the feelings in scene 2 and scene 3 are much, much clearer on the page. In scene 1, you could look at it and say, well, this is just establishing. This is basically just a bunch of information teaching the audience. But if you're going to play this character, you have to find something interesting about it. And I would say that what you are also establishing is the relationships with the other two main characters. That the relationship between the main character, Jillian, and her two best friends, which you want to be distinct and different. And if you're going to be playing Jillian, then you want to use that as an opportunity to bring those relationships to life a little bit. So let's start by looking at the story questions. If you've joined us for one of the Wednesdays before, you will recognize some of these. So style, writer story, my story, arc, descriptive words, etc., etc. We're going to go over these one at a time. I think for style, our very best bet is to start with IMDB.com, the Internet Movie Database. And if you were auditioning for this, it's a fairly old movie, then you would want to first go to, where are we? First, you would want to go to IMDB and look up Salem Falls. Hopefully, by the time you looked it up, it would have something like this, but you would get this in the breakdown anyway. A man with a troubled past tries to settle down in a small town, finds love, and then ends up being the target of a witch hunt. Interesting. Does he find love with the lady who cast the love spell? I don't know. Probably. But one of the wonderful things here, if you were auditioning for this, is you would look at this, or even if you just entered it, Salem Falls, into Google, you would find that Jodi Picoult wrote this novel. And so we could very easily go Salem Falls, Jodi Picoult, uh-oh, I'm spelling it wrong, novel, Wikipedia. And probably that's going to pop us up with, there we go. When he's given a label and not allowed to escape from it. Jodi Picoult, Wikipedia. Excellent. So we could look up Salem Falls. We could find out more about it, the characters, plot summary, high school teacher, details. And we could get some context there. Would that give us a sense of the style of the movie? That one's tricky. So then the next thing we would do is look up the director, and the writers. And if you did that, you would find Bradley Walsh. We would scroll down. In this case, we have to scroll further back in history because this is an old movie. Salem Falls, and we would look at these last two TV movies, because Salem Falls is a TV movie, the last two TV movies before. This is the person who they've hired to oversee the story and the style. And so this often our best bet is looking at the director, and if not, at the producer, creator, the writer. So we would look at Turn It the Beat Around. A struggling dancer in LA teams up with a young club impresario to bring back disco. Okay, probably not. It's probably not what they're going for with witchy teenager movie. This, however, expectant parents become prime suspects in the disappearance of a pregnant woman who was last seen at their garage sale. Right, so crime, we've got the like sense of the kind of Lifetime drama. Well, and look at this. Do you see the Lifetime logo in the bottom right-hand corner of this? You probably can't because I am squinting to see it. But if the corner of this poster, you can see the Lifetime logos. Okay, so one of those movies. Then if we looked up the writers, you would find Tina Booth, and the two things she did before this TV movie, Salem Falls, were The Hunt for the I-5 Killer and Cyberbully. And so cyberbully, a teenager is subject to a campaign of bullying by classmates through a social networking site. The Hunt for the I-5 Killer, the true story of a year-long manhunt for the killer who raped and murdered his way up and down the I-5 corridor through California, Washington, and Oregon for over a year, leaving 44 victims in his wake. We could go watch trailers of those if we wanted to like be really sort of extra, but we've got Salem Falls crime drama. So IMDB gives us the two words crime and drama, if it's there by the time you go looking. But to get a sense of it, we've got to go, oh, okay, right. It's the writer of Cyberbully and The Hunt for the I-5 Killer, directed by the guy who directed this Lifetime movie about like a couple that's being suspected of being involved in the disappearance of this woman. Oh, okay, yeah, it's that kind of, this is going to be tense, suspense. Lifetime movies, so if Hallmark movies, everything's happy. Lifetime movies typically are as close to melodrama as you are going to find particularly in the Vancouver market. Meaning that like the feelings are big and they're right there on the surface, right? Like in a Hallmark movie, when like the person pulls the knife at the like big scene, you're going to see the knife for a second, and then mostly you're going to see their face. And we're going to know that that works out okay, and probably they're not going to pull a knife in the first place. In a Lifetime movie, she's going to hold it up to the neck of the other person who's going to be in tears, and and she's going to like have this long monologue about how the lady ruined her life, and she's going to list every traumatic thing that happened to her, and everybody's going to be crying, and there's going to be lots of shouting, and then somebody will burst through the door and shoot her in the arm, and like the Lifetime, you still have to be a skilled actor to do these kind of things, right? Knowing the style that you are in is just really important. Because if you dramatically underplayed that HBO style, it might not have enough grab. And one of the ways to think about style is who's the audience. And one of the ways to think about these Lifetime movies is imagine somebody's just flipping channels on cable, and they want each scene to have something that's so interesting that people are like, oh, what's this? Ooh, who's this witchy girl? Things are going on here. Oh, wow. Now they're like dancing naked in the woods. Drama. And her friends are super freaked out. There's sort of big drama happening. And so if we go back to our story questions, then we're going Lifetime, MOW, which stands for Movie of the Week or TV movie. But you'll still see MOW often. Crime, drama. Writer's story. New guy moves to town and is accused of bad things. My story, if I'm Jillian, and so what we've got, at least in the first scene, but really like supported by the next couple of scenes, is using witchy powers to find my true love. Right, and that's if you have more of a science fiction bent. Now if you if you were like, I don't really feel sci-fi, like that doesn't do anything for me, but you have a like obsessive passion for playing ping pong or something, you can use whatever it is in your life that helps you understand it. You're like, oh yeah, so probably not, I'm not going to top level make the story about ping pong, but I'm going to say, my story is about my like obsessive dedication towards getting what I want. and that's my story as Jillian. It's like, okay, great. So I have a way to understand this character, even if I'm not boy crazy or I'm not into witchy powers, or sort of I have a completely different way of approaching it. But I think making that top level decision of like, here's the part of the story that speaks to me or that I want to tell, is really important because it shapes the rest of your decisions. First, we're like, okay, what story do they want to tell? What story do I want to tell? Now let's explore inside of that, right? It's like you've got the entire impossibly huge world of story, and then there's a slice of the pie that's like, okay, here's the story the writer's telling, and there's a slice of that that's like, and then here's the piece of that interests me. You still got tons of choices there when you like zoom in, right? But each one narrows it down, so that you're not really dealing with an open essay question, which is I think when I see actors sort of do the mind blank, where it's like, you could choose anything, and they're like, and which is really normal, right? If you have absolutely any choice available to you, it can be really hard to choose anything, which is one of the reasons that I recommend looking so carefully at a script and just taking everything off of there. It makes your life easier typically. Then the arc or the change, in this scene, we could say that it's about. So let's look at these next couple of questions, because really it's the script relationship, the personalization, the descriptive words, the objective, right? Like, so the changes, like convincing my friends to help me, maybe convincing, right? So convincing friends, or dedicated to getting what I want, or etc. So if we go back to the script now, I neglected to share that with you while I was typing things in, didn't I? If we go back, so if we take a look here, sorry, I'm bouncing around. I meant to show you this. Convincing friends. Right, so now we want to look at descriptive words for me and the other person, the script relationship, what helps me understand it, and then the objective. And on paper, it looks like this can be an academic process. When we look at the script, we can actually do it quite efficiently. And so what I would love is now for our 3 readers, each of you to try on, what if you were playing Jillian, and Candy or anybody else wants to jump in, imagine that you are now playing the character of Jillian. They're seeing a range of folks and they don't know quite what they want. And so you're going to want to technically place Chelsea on one side and Megan on the other side. And I will find a scene where there are like 5 or 6 characters for one of these subsequent weeks, so that I can show you what that looks like. This one, you're going to want to place those 2 characters, this side of the camera, that side of the camera, because that will help you tell the story that you have different relationships. Even if you're doing the inner work to make those relationships different, if it's here and this person, I've decided that like Chelsea's my like the skeptical friend, the one who's like the piano prodigy and is like, I don't know, because like I care about details, and Megan is the like sort of woo-woo new agey friend, who's like super into the witchiness, and I want to make those relationships super different. I'm like, okay, look, I got to convince you, and like, see, like Megan's got my back. Like, she's actually the one who introduced this to me. Yeah. Like, I've got the drive, but Megan's got the woo-woo. Maybe I want that. But if I put them next to each other on the same side of the camera, the risk is that people will think that you were just confused about where to look, but also that those 2 relationships will blend in together. That as I make the very small transition between, hey, I want to convince you, and like, see, you've got my back, that little movement on that side, on the same side of the camera, just a flick of the eyes, harder to tell that story clearly. So different acting teachers have different opinions. The reason that I like splitting the lens or splitting the eye lines onto opposite sides of the lens is it makes the 2 relationships really clear. And then if you had a scene with 5 or 6 eye lines, with 5 or 6 characters, ideally you would be like, well, these 4 people are on my side, and so I'm going to use the same eyeline for them. Yeah, and I think that when I'm doing scripts like that, sometimes to get around the like rational part of me that's like, but there's 4 of them. How can they be all in the same place? I'm like, okay, listen, detail-oriented rational brain. They're all standing behind each other. Right. So right. So it's like a hallway or something, right? They just happen to be like very slightly different heights, and they're all in exactly the same eyeline. So I'm just going to look at Kira, and Kira's actually all 4 of them. Like if I have to convince myself of that, and that's usually enough to make like this sort of detail oriented, like that makes no sense. Me go like, fine, and then I can get back to work. And you'll run into that periodically with scenes. And I, as an acting coach, I will sometimes run into that somebody will bring in a scene and be like, well, I have to put them over here because we're sitting next to each other in the car. And I'm like, okay, now you're standing in a hallway, and, or you're sitting at a funny angle in your seat, or it's a, it's a European car and you're sitting on the other side, right? Where sometimes we just have to make that little adjustment to help us imagine into it. And so if we, let me take us back to the script, right? How long does the love spell take to work? If it works. Take that back. You can say if. Yeah, magic can't help you if you don't have faith in it. Right? So if you're playing Jillian, how would you describe yourself? Right? What is dedicated and experienced? Great. Yeah. She's like, yeah, right? She's the focused one. Anything that sort of fits your version of the story better? Kira or Melissa or Candy, if you're like, okay, yeah, my idea of this character is different than that. Okay. And the help me out in thinking about some of the different options that we could have for Chelsea and Megan, right? So Chelsea's the one asking questions. Megan's the one who's like helping convince. So if we just play with Eve's description of Jillian, right? So if you're Jillian, you're like, I am dedicated and experienced. You're talking about yourself. And then what is Jillian's opinion of Chelsea? What is Jillian's opinion of Megan?
I've been watching Vampire Diaries a lot recently, so I see it as sort of like, I don't know if you've seen it, but like Elena, Bonnie, and Caroline, where Bonnie is like the true blue friend, and maybe that's Chelsea, and she's always got my back, and Megan is the one that's like, we've been friends since kindergarten, and that's why we're still friends, but maybe she's a little bit skeptical of me, or she's annoying sometimes, and I'm only friends with her because we've been friends for so long.
Great. And that's a fantastic example and something that hasn't come up in the lessons very often, that if there's another show, especially if it's a show that shares some stylistic similarities that helps you understand those relationships, then boom, you've got something, right? Like if it's easy, you just take something that you've already got and then you build on top of it. And so then you're not starting from scratch, you're building off of something existing, right? So if we go with Kira's, like, this is the true blue friend, and sorry, what was the other one?
The other one is more like the one that we just put up with, because
the one that we put up with. Yeah, right. And then you would want to, as you go into the script relationships, they're all good friends, but we know that one's the true blue and one's the one we put up with. Then when you get to the personalizing side of things, then Kira's version of what's the true blue and what's the one we put up with is going to be different from Melissa's, right? So this is where we start to again narrow the slice of the pie further to where you as a person and your relationships and your understandings overlap with the story. You're not going to take it sort of like way out here. You're still going to stay within here's the writer's story, here's the director's story. Got lots of flexibility in there. To find the part that genuinely overlaps you. So maybe, the friend that Melissa puts up with, because, I don't know, she's got more European friends, she can be like more aggressive with them, and she can be just like, Chelsea, And for Kira, her like immediate impulse is more like, oh no, that's my friend who's like, they're really sweet, but, and I really like, and I like them, but they're just so dumb, and right, and so it's totally different. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, you go with that, that's fine. Which is totally different from Melissa's like, okay, listen, like I'm the convince you different person I put up with, and then Candy and Eve might have a completely different association, and likely, if there's like a clear specific choice about that personalization, the true blue friend is also going to be different. Now I will say that it's useful to remember that most of the shows that we audition for in Vancouver, are going out for an American market, and so although when we start looking at personalizations, like, well, the true blue friend and the friend that I put up with, I mean, if we're talking about Canadian actors, and particularly like the young Canadian actors that I'm used to working with, it's like both of them you're going to want to be like super nice and empathic with. Typically, if somebody's like, well, that's it's like my friends, like there's the one I put up with, but like, oh, and there's my true blue friend, and oh, and so there's not a lot of fight, there's not a lot of win, there's not a lot of like give and take, there's not a lot of push, and so we potentially miss some of the drama there, and so one of the ways that you can address that, if you happen to be one of those actors like myself who's like, but I like people and I want to be nice to them, is you can say things like, well, if we're friends, we're such good friends that no matter what I say to them, they're not going to worry about, like me thinking, like about the fact that I love them. It's like, I can be like, oh, come on, Megan, don't be such an idiot. And like Megan and I are so tight, that like, I'm not worried at all that Megan's going to go home and cry, or is going to be like, I'm not your friend anymore. And so that's one way to sort of like take that, okay, I want to empathize with the feelings behind the experience, but bring it in line with the story. I often have to make those adjustments for myself. So I'm just speaking for myself now, but it can be useful when you're looking at a script. And then we take that into objective, and I think that particularly with objective, right? So we have really different clear relationships. That's really important because this trio is going to hold down the script or hold down this movie. But when you're talking about an objective, right, that objective is like the thing that drives you, the thing that sort of fires up the scene. If we use that Ivana Chubbuck language, from the couple of lessons that I covered Ivana's work, the thing you need to win. Then I think attaching your objective to one key person, very helpful. Especially because you will most often have just one reader. I mean, in an actual audition, you're only going to have one reader. Maybe you've got like a million friends on Zoom, who are just like, sure, I'll help you anytime. And you can like spread them out all over the place, but probably you're gonna have a single reader. And so giving yourself a reason to look at your reader more, right? So if I'm reading with Melissa, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna put her there. And whoever it is that I am connecting with the most, whoever it is that like I really wanna convince, I'm gonna make that Melissa, so that if my objective is like, no, I'm going to show Chelsea, that like we can do this, like we can do witchy things, Melissa, come on, and that's my goal, is like to win. That Chelsea's like, I don't know, and I'm like, no, I know, like trust me, or the same ultimate result, right? Like to get Melissa on board, but maybe my objective, is to like draw her into the mystery. And so instead of like, come on, what I'm playing with is like, oh, like, we did this spell before, and it was like mysterious and interesting, and like, who the world is mysterious, Melissa. It has mysterious powers in it, and we have access to that because of our witchiness. Like, come on, mystery, 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 mystery. I'm still trying to win. Wildly different objectives, still possible. Can anybody else think of, like another objective, like another way to sort of approach that objective of, I'm going to get Chelsea on board with casting this witchy spell with us, right? Because there definitely are more options than that.
So I had a thought, while as you guys are talking, about kind of Jillian's objective in kind of where she's coming from. Like, why does she want to do magic versus organically, and why is this kind of a hurry for her?
Right.
And maybe it's because she's kind of like weird compared to other people, and so she doesn't think conventional will work. So she thinks magic, this is a sure way. I won't have to mess with all the emotions. This is what's going to work for me.
Great.
And that's why maybe she acts different with different friends too, is she's just kind of like doesn't connect as emotionally to certain people, maybe.
Yeah, we have what a great specific take on it. Because I mean, I think that that everybody, I don't know if everybody has this experience, but like 99.9% of the actors I know what it's like to feel like an outsider. And it's a really potent experience, and it's a great thing to bring in. So for something like this, where you're like, oh yeah, that's what it's about. Like she's dedicated, experienced, and weird. And so it's like, this is my only chance. Like, don't you understand, Chelsea? Like, if we don't cast a spell, I'm never gonna find love. And we have to do it before grad, which is next weekend. Otherwise I'm gonna go to grad alone, and everybody will know for the rest of time that I'm like a lonely weirdo. Like, we have to do this now. Great. And so you can see that Candy's impression is very different. Like, might have the same goal, might have some of the same intensity, but it's got a different flavor to it. And probably suggests things about her wardrobe that are going to be different. Right, like the fancy Jillian, who's like, we're going to cast a spell because I'm entitled and full of myself, is totally possible based on the script that we've seen, right? Like, she's checking herself out in the mirror, and the like super weird, like quirky gothy Jillian, that might fit more of Candy's version, where like she's checking herself out in the mirror because like she wants to, know if her like too thick eyeliner, is like starting to, like smear, and Bryden has all the like charms and the, like layers of black, very different, still totally valid given what we've seen. So there's our deep dive into Witchy script number 1. Any questions about any of this before we wrap up today's session? Okay. Thank you for our brave volunteers, who read and threw their opinions into the circle. And tomorrow we've got Carly Warkington joining us, and then Friday Leanne Lapp will be teaching. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye.